Welcome back to FlatsClass YouTube, everyone. Captain CA here, and today I got a great lesson for you. This one is the best speckled trout lure, well, that you're probably not using. It's fall right now. I call it hard bait season. This is when hard baits work the best. And we've been doing some tips on top water and suspenders and things like that. But this floater diver bait, bar none, is my favorite to throw, and it's a classic. So if you're faced with these overcast, breezy days before the front, and you've been struggling catching speckled trout, you're gonna wanna watch this one. Let's go inside. In fact, you go check out some action, and I'll meet you inside, and we'll wrap this up. After this one. Yeah, that's a nice fish. Look at that. That is a nice fish. Classic. Old classic. That green bait. Classic. What happens when you mash down the barbs. Easy. He had every trouble in him, came right out. That's a good 17-incher. Classic 7M. All right, in that little piece of B-roll from a day out on the water with one of my best students at FlatsClass University. In fact, Joe is becoming a licensed professional guide very soon. So we're out there and we're challenged with typical fall weather, as you saw, overcast as a front approaches, hard wind. I mean, and when I say hard, it was blowing a solid 12 to 15 miles an hour with gusts to 20. Many of you might say, well, heck, I wouldn't even go out in that kind of weather. Well, let me tell you something. Those are some of the best days to fish, in my opinion. In fact, I look forward to days like that, especially if I want to catch fish. Catching fish on the pretty days, it may seem easy, but I'm telling you right now, it's not. All right, let's talk a little bit about what you actually saw, and even if you have to back the video up, you saw me catching trout on a 3-hook plug, and you're like, why would I use some old antiquated bait like this to catch trout? Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, on days like that, top waters get somewhat lost. I was looking for one up here. They get lost on the surface when the surface is that rough from that much wind. So I find that this bait, which actually floats and will dive if I keep it in a good regular rhythm, it will dive. I can get it to achieve depths of almost 18 inches, but it's usually about 8 to 12 inches is where this thing lives under the surface, starting back and forth. When I do that, the flash that comes off this bait, the way it rolls and flashes like that, it calls fish in if I've got decent water clarity from a long way off, and they really hammer it. Fish that are out roaming over the flat in those type of conditions are generally very, very aggressive. Now, the other thing you noticed in that video is how easy it was for me to take the hooks out of that trout. Because a lot of you are like, oh, dear Lord, I would never use treble hooks. I want to use inline hooks. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you look right here in this picture, okay, I have racks of inline hook hard baits back in my shop. For me, they have always been a situational bait where maybe I've got too much grass on the surface, or maybe I'm trying to fish close to a dock or something like that. Or maybe I've got schooling fish like mackerel or jacks, or maybe there is a giant school of redfish and I'm going to get a lot of shots, so if I miss a few, it's okay. But I'm telling you, and I can speak to this with the greatest confidence, I'm not making any bones about it. My experience with inline hooks, unless I bend them out at an odd angle, which changes the action on them, typically inline hooks weigh my bait down a little bit more and they don't move as nice underneath the water as they would if they were with their factory trebles. I don't get the action, I get an altered action, and I miss a lot of fish. The hookup ratio is not acceptable for me, except for when I'm in situations where I have no choice, or I'm going to get so many opportunities, it's okay to miss a bunch of them. But most of us are out there just spraying and praying, and we just want to catch some fish. And if we're only going to get 15 or 20 opportunities where a fish swings out of bait, a hard bait, do you really want to give up half of them because you were using inline hooks? You got to ask yourself, why are you using the inline hooks? Protect the fish, naturally. I get it. Protect yourself, naturally. I get it. But when you mash the barbs down on these hooks, you're really in pretty good shape. That trout in that piece of video had all of these hooks, and I pulled it out in less than, what, 6 or 7 seconds. It was out. No big deal at all. I use a rubber net if I catch a big fish. No big deal. Even if I get one of these in me, I can pull it right out. And trust me, my wife will tell you, I get plenty of these in me. The other thing you got to notice is I was not using braid on that bait salty hundo Fitzgerald combo. I was using fluorocarbon. This is 100% fluorocarbon. I use it on a lot of my casting reels during trout season because I want to catch them. And I have a lot of confidence with the little bit of give that I get with this matched with these treble hooks that I'm going to be able to stay connected to my trout. Now this is 17 pound. I use a lot of 14 pound for this method as well. But when I'm using the 17 pound Mamoy, the Soflex from them, I don't even use tippet. I don't even use a leader because I know I'm trout fishing. Now if I'm going to expect to catch maybe the oddball snook out there, or maybe there's some bigger reds, I might blood knot a piece of tippet on there, maybe 25 or 30 pound fluoro to that. But this stuff here, it's quieter, it's more invisible, and I have a lot of sensitivity to catch those fish. And once they're connected, then I have just enough forgiveness that they can't get off. Now, let's break this plug down. Let me give you the specs on this. All right, this is one of the old school baits from Mirrolure. That's why I teased you in the intro saying, you probably never have used this, especially if you grew up after the year 2000. You're like, I don't use baits like that at all. None. There's not a lot of difference between this. I bass fished a lot when I was a kid, and what the bass guys would use is a hard jerk bait. So it doesn't scare me to have a 3-hook treble bait at all. I grew up throwing these things. In fact, I grew up in the county where they made these things, and am personal friends with the owner of the brand and have been for decades. So I'm one of their longest tenured pro staffers. I've come to love this plug. One of the biggest reasons is even on the calm days, there's no rattle in this bait. And lots of times when you have calm conditions after the front and you're trying to throw a topwater that has a lot of shot in it, like the high frequency dogs, or has the single, it's too much. But when I don't see a lot of mullet activity or anything like that, I throw this. This is one of my most versatile baits. Now, I like to work it quicker in October and most of November, where I can dart it underneath the water and keep it in that 8 to 18 inches of depth, where it's just flashing and rolling and darting around. And you might say, well, why wouldn't you use a Mirrolure? Well, a Mirrolure has replaced a lot of the guys that used to use this plug. But the longer flash and the way this thing gets wider in the water because of the length of the body, it's 3 5/8 inches long, okay? It weighs 1/2 ounce, which is a little heavier than a Mirrolure. Allows me to make a nice cast even into the wind with a baitcaster. It allows me to do that, and I can work this thing. Now, if I want to have a calmer day, if I'm involved in a calm water situation, I let it hit the surface and I just twitch it softly a couple of times and let it pop back up. Twitch it softly a couple of times, let it pop back up. I can almost subtly, slowly walk the dog. And when it starts getting colder and we are fishing in those conditions, that's how I fish this plug. But right now, I can fish it a little bit more caffeinated, and with the barbs mashed down and everything like that, the way I approach it, it really does catch a lot of fish. Now, this is one of my favorite colors, which is the 18. Looks a lot like a Spanish sardine or mullet in a lot of areas. If you live in an area where they have darker backs, you can get the 21, which is the black back, silver sides, white belly. I also like to use the all gold if I'm fishing backcountry situations, or I'll use the all silver if I'm fishing out closer to the barrier islands, where I have more of clean, clear water. The number one thing with this bait is I do like to have a couple of feet of visibility in the water. I don't fish it in muddy conditions at all. I fish it when the water is somewhat clear. Gosh, my favorite. I call it a topwater. It's a floater diver, but I call it a topwater. It's one of my favorites there just because it's quiet. It's just a quiet bait. 2, the other color, or let me give you the last color. The last color, and it's a color that is kind of a pro staff and employee favorite at Mirrolure, I'll tell you that, which is L&S Baits, is the 808, which is, it's kind of a candy corn color, where it has a black back, it has gold flanks, and the belly is somewhat orange with a red gill. Works great. And it's a good overall color going into winter when you're fishing those tannin waters where you might be in rivers, creeks, and little back bays that are surrounded by marsh where there's lots of finger mullet. Perfect for those zones there, especially shallow where the fish are a little shy. But all in all, it's just one of those lures that gets overlooked. Here's the packaging, just so you know what it looks like. And if you want to order these, you can get them at sodiumusa.com. Try them out there. Sodium is one of our tackle affiliates for FlatsClassUniversity.com, and they do a fantastic job of filling the needs of all of my students. And I think if you start trying them yourselves, you too will become a huge fan. They are the online retailer to have a relationship with, especially if you're an inshore angler. All right. Let's talk about more of you joining us at FlatsClassUniversity.com. This is my inshore online fishing school where we teach you deep dives into not only fishing tackle and species-specific strategies, but all the little things that go on in a day-to-day passion or your journey in inshore fishing, whether it's rod and reel maintenance, whether it's travel, whether it's get-togethers, which we have one on December 7th for our members here at Sodium Fishing in Crystal River. It's a community of avid anglers that are looking to level up their game. I would not say it's for the beginner. I would definitely say it's for the intermediate to advanced angler level. It's somewhere where we feel we can teach you every nuance of artificial fishing, especially those of you that love to target redfish and speckled trout. If that's right up your alley, then this school is for you. If you like what you've been learning here at FlatsClass YouTube, give us that thumbs up and smash that subscription button. I want you to join us each and every day here in my virtual classroom, where I can help make you a better inshore angler. See you tomorrow.